understand what this facility is doing, then I'm very receptive to it. With that, Mr. Chair, I do have one issue that I'd like to pass out. I've worked with administration and with Attorney Mackey in putting this together. You know, I think I sent an email to Administrator Gray sometime after midnight last night that said, I know now how long I've been at this and how old I'm getting, because I actually remember when common sense used to be common. And we have a situation where MnDOT has changed their protocols, so to speak, on the mowing of roadsides. And MnDOT requires a signature from the county or county authority to allow the transport of the hay that would be mowed from the roadsides. And we have a farmer in particular, but the truth is we have a number of farmers who mow roadsides within St. Louis County. In this case, it happens to be on a state trunk highway. And there are some issues, as we have had in the past, to be perfectly honest with you, with our county ag inspector signing off on the transport of this, which in statute particular, it's allowed if it's covered. That is doable. You can cover the load. But to load the load into a fully enclosed trailer with bales weighing roughly a ton, the question is how you can get them in there. How do you get them out? And so to facilitate that, I'm looking for this directive motion, which I'm going to make, and it's really directing our county ag inspector to follow state statute and to follow the state law, which we have. Are there weeds in the roadside? Ladies and gentlemen, there absolutely are weeds in the roadside. But at the same token, we're hauling in mulch hay from CRP land in western North Dakota, which is dragging in weeds that you've heard me before talk about the $1 million that's being spent on the control of noxious weeds within the Superior National, because we can't seem to get a policy together to keep local hay. This is local hay. It's being produced here. It's cleaning up the roadsides. And more importantly, we are right now in a situation in the state of Minnesota that the Department of Agriculture has recognized as a hay emergency. We have a forage emergency. In fact, the state of Minnesota has actually opened up some of the WMAs, the wildlife management areas, to haying so that farmers can pick up enough to get their herds through the winter. So with that, I'm going to make this as a directive motion and looking for support to get this moving.
I would support that.
Okay, we got a motion for directive motion by Commissioner Nelson, second by Commissioner Forsman, hand by Commissioner Jewell.
I will just bring up a concern that I have had before. I think that motions that we wish to have discussed should be on the agenda and should be part of this. So I'm not opposed to this as a motion, but I would like to see it published as part of our agenda and would suggest that we put it on our agenda for the next meeting and move it at that time. But at this point, it seems to me to be coming at the very end of a board meeting in a way that I just don't think is good. I don't think it makes us look good, as I've said before.
Thank you. And before I recognize Commissioner Nelson, I see Administrator Gray. Did you want to put something from the administration's perspective?
Mr. Chair, and I'll thank you. And I do want to say that this is a very late-breaking issue, quite frankly. I was made aware of the concerns that were brought to Commissioner Nelson, I think probably on the heels of a phone call or a discussion he may have had and this was yesterday morning. So I agree with Commissioner Jewell that our normal protocol is one that we very aggressively try to adhere to in terms of noticing and publicizing and having that transparency. I would also say that the motion that Commissioner Nelson felt was appropriate to bring forward was in the form of the last paragraph here, in that directing our county agricultural inspector, which is an outsourced function that is part of the Land and Minerals Department, to comply with the laws as these permits come forward, because issues have been expressed that these were not going to be processed in accord with statute. In talking with Attorney Mackey regarding this, we both felt that it would be appropriate to have a little bit of background information. So there's a little spit and polish that we put onto the motion that is addressing the concern that was raised to Commissioner Nelson. And again, this is extremely last minute, and the sense of urgency has to do with the very topic here of mowing and transporting hay. There are two permits involved. One is issued and under the control of MnDOT for the mowing in their right-of-way. And the second is if there is a noxious weed element, we do have a approval step in that process that is separate from MnDOT. We're trying to honor that, but the timeliness obviously, as this, what's the expression, make hay while the sun is shining. The sun is shining and there's extremely short window here. So the sense of urgency that was conveyed to me is why we're bringing this forward. And I would say that as I reviewed this with Attorney Mackey and with Deputy Director Reed in Land and Minerals and Deputy Administrator Eckenberg, we kind of took a quick run at this in order to have this opportunity for the board to make a timely decision. The whereases are my expansion of the addressing the concern and the issue so that the board is fully informed, even though we've been approaching this on a very last minute basis, because that's just the nature of it. The board has been made aware of a possible conflict regarding a permit for transportation of the mowed hay along the Trunk Highway 169 corridor. MnDOT's approved the cutting of the hay in the corridor, but consistent with good practices, requires a permit to be obtained from county officials due to the presence of noxious weeds. And in discussion with the attorney, it's in our best interest to approve any permit requests that meet state requirements. And this is really to ensure that we are complying with law and not being arbitrary or capricious in our interpretation of the law. And so I think it's that clarification and reinforcement of the county role. And again, I do apologize, but I know that this came to Commissioner Nelson extremely late in the game. In fact, if we'd had the opportunity even on Thursday or Friday, I would have sent out a revised agenda, but that wasn't the case. So in the interest of timeliness, it's being brought here as a directive of motion, and it looks a little more expanded than a typical directive motion because both Attorney Mackey and I, after talking with all the parties involved, and that's still ongoing discussion, thought the whereases, while a little bit untypical, would inform the board. So I think we're trying to comply with that, and the gist of this is to ensure that the county follows the laws in terms of follows state law with respect to the issuance of the transfer.
Okay, I think then we had Commissioner Nelson, then Commissioner Jewell. Back to Commissioner Jewell.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Dahlberg. Commissioner Jewell, I've been trying to look good for years, and people have been trying to make me look good for years, but the truth is, every morning I get up and look in the mirror and I understand that I'm not going to look good. So the fact of the matter is that the farmer in question here was anticipating the permit. At 9 o'clock yesterday, he was informed that the county had not signed off, and he can't get the permit. My guess is that he probably will get a sign off sometime around when we have about 6 to 8 inches of snow on the ground. Be a little bit difficult to make some hay out there. This same farmer has actually been making a lot of hay along county roadsides, County 7, County 4, just as an example, in the past several weeks. Again, we're in an emergency situation. I understand that coming to this board with a directive motion becomes an issue, especially for you, Commissioner Jewell. But the truth is, if this board isn't responsive, then we're not doing our job. I spent about 6 hours on this yesterday. I've covered every detail of this. I believe we have a situation where today, if this passes, today, we will have mowers out on those roadsides, saving county taxpayers money, okay? Because we don't have to send our mowers out there to cut. Now, in this case, it's not us, it's MnDOT, but it's the same taxpayers. Putting this forage up, getting it up in a fashion that will work for the industry, for offsetting farming pieces of this. And the truth is, with modern equipment, I don't know if you've looked at the long-term forecast, but I did. When I looked at this, they're talking 2 inches of rain this weekend. I'm trying to get something done so that this farmer can get out there today, tomorrow, put down probably 200 to 300 acres, which is about their capability to do in a day. Put down 200 to 300 acres, potentially get up 200 to 300 bales. Not great quality hay. I mean, let's face it, this roadside hay is not great quality, but it's good enough. And so I bring this here for the board's consideration with the understanding that look, if we can facilitate this, and I'm not asking for anything out of the ordinary, I'm asking that our ag inspector comply with the state statute and respond in a reasonable fashion and in a reasonable time frame, so that we can get this done. And that has not been the case up to this point. So, and it was a change. This is nothing new. This is a one-time thing, because St. Louis County is going to have to address this over the course of the next 6 to 8 months so that we have a policy in place. But right now we're talking about a one-time situation. We get this done, and then we go back and we come up with a policy that and a channel that MnDOT can then have a go-to person within St. Louis County, where we can keep these permits moving, okay? Because it is frustrating for someone to go in and have a permit drag out for, in this case, it's drug out for almost 12 days when the sun has been shining, okay? For a farmer like myself to have to sit in this kind of weather and know what's coming because some bureaucrat can't follow what is in statute, that's really an issue, okay? And I'll have a lot more to talk about this as we get to the policy on this, because I am still upset that this county and that the state will not allow us to put in a policy that controls the amount of mulch hay that's coming from outside of our area. It is a travesty what is happening, and the fact that we can spend $1 million reacting to noxious weeds, and we can't spend anything to stop them from coming into this area. Anything that we have for a weed in this roadside, I can personally assure you it's already here, or it wouldn't be growing in our roadsides, okay? But yet, we're transporting in mulch hay from CRP land in western North Dakota. And that is not good for this area. So I hope we can see through this, keep this moving, and have trust and faith in administration to make sure that this is followed through on, as well as our legal department. I don't think this is something that's controversial within the community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Jewell.
So, my point is still the same. I understand that this could be something we should do. You've just told us, Administrator Gray, that you've been talking about this for a day. Could have been on our table when we started the meeting. Could have been handed out at the beginning of the committee of the whole. Could have been a variety of things. The fact that it is handed out after everything is done, during commissioner comments, is what I find wrong with it. You could figure out multiple other ways, Commissioner Nelson, to do it, but showing it up at the end is what I think isn't good policy, isn't good procedure, and you're right. You've done it before, and it's not going to stop you from doing it. I'm just saying that it's of concern to me, and it, even when it is something I support. So it's just one of these things. So I am simply saying I want it to show up in a different way, and I'll support the idea, and certainly want this person to be able to mow. And having grown up on a farm, I got the idea. You hay when you can. So.
Any other commissioners? I guess I'll say, I too have trouble with these directive motions, and it's difficult when it's brought on the 11th hour, and not that I'm not supportive of this, but it's just a matter of, there's a lot of information that's brought up that Commissioner Nelson, you're bringing up, that you have some deep information, knowledge on this. You've been working on this for some time here, and I'm just asked to say this is a good policy, react to it and act on it, and I'm most likely on the face it looks like it. The other thing is, why is it? It's our employee, right? It's our county employee. It's not.
No.
So it's not through our extension service, or.
Oh.
Okay, so that's the thing. It says directs the county ag inspector. So he's actually
Contract employee,
through us.
correct,
Yeah.
through our line department.
It's just, and I just wonder why we have to, and that's going through the discussion, is that this is why, there appears that there's a contract out there. There's somebody that we have questioned by this language that's in violation of they're in violation of, my impression is, state law, because you're telling them to comply with state law. And so I'm getting the feeling that he's not complying with state law, so we've got a contractor out there that's not complying with state law, so that would give us some justification to let him go. I think we'd have some weight, I guess, and I guess the administration, and there's a lot of background, maybe they're looking for some cover or support to say, we have the ability to either tell this person, get off the stick and do the right thing, that this is the law, you're not following it. And I don't, so that's why all of a sudden, and haven't talked to Administrator Gray or the administration about the issue at all, and so now we're getting into a contractual situation, and we've got a county attorney here in the background. And we're dealing at, introduced at the end. It's just, that's the thing. I know, I understand there's timeliness. So it might rain, it might not.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
how about if I just withdraw it? Because you know what? This board,
Commissioner Nelson,
cannot get
it
done.
Hang on.
So let's just withdraw it.
Okay.
You know what? That hay will stay on the roadside, and the farmers won't get it up, because procedurally, we can't get it done. Thank you.
Well, and I
Mr. Chair.
understand, and now I will recognize you, Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Nelson, everybody has to have some rules.
It's not
Commissioner
what we're
Nelson,
talking
it's not a
about.
one-person rule here. It's not a Commissioner Nelson rule. I would ask
Mr.
some
Chair,
respect on sharing this.
It is not worth talking about for me anymore. I've withdrawn my motion.
I'm disappointed that you have to leave the room and you're not complying with the rest of the board.
I have a lot of things that need to be done.
So Commissioner Nelson has withdrawn the
Listen to
motion,
this.
and the motion's been withdrawn by the maker. So with that, is there any more items as far as commissioner discussion? Commissioner Forsman?
As a seconder of the motion, I would take and remove my second and make the motion, and if there's a second, I would like to speak to it.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a
The same
motion.
Same
Motion by Commissioner Forsman, seconded by Commissioner Rocker. Commissioner Forsman.
And to this point, I mean, I did have, with, to certainly respect to those people that hadn't heard it before, I actually got a call from Commissioner Nelson this morning, asking me about this and kind of filling me in on it. So I did have a leg up on the rest of the board, and I'm not apologizing for it. I'm just saying that I did have a little bit of a leg up, and I understood that. But I think that one of the things that this county board has been able to do at that, and many county boards and cities can do, is they can react to an emergency. And in this case, I believe this is an emergency. I mean, we are trying to get one of our contract employees to take and basically follow the state law. And that's, as I understood it, and I think I still understand it, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're just putting a little bit of leverage in a case where we truly do have we need to react relatively fast. And we have to be able to react to those things that that come up. Unlike, I mean, we don't want to take we don't want to take the thought that we're going to be like the federal government, where you know for 6-7 months that you're going to have you're going to end up in a government shutdown if you don't come to a deal and stuff. And then they go to that 11th hour, and they go past that 11th hour because, going back to procedures, they got so many procedures and this and that and whatever, and they can't even get it done when they've got a deadline. This board has in the past, other county boards, other cities, other local units of government, see an emergency, we react to it. And to Commissioner Jewell's point, Frank, I agree with you. I mean, I don't like when something comes forward. I'm not apologizing, but I didn't know about this in advance. But it does bother me when something comes at the end of a thing. But this is an emergency, and that's the reason that even though Commissioner Nelson has left the room, I think that this board should act on this. It is something that we do well. You know, we recognize a problem, we get it done. 11th hour doesn't mean that terribly much if we know it's a good idea intuitively. I think everyone in this room knows that it's a good idea to try to take and put this pressure on there. But when it's not an emergency, and I'll stop with this, when it's not an emergency, absolutely. This should go through the process. It should do all of those things that are out there. So.
Okay, we have 4 commissioners that are interested to speak. Commissioner Stauber, Commissioner Rocker, Commissioner Jewell, and Commissioner Miller.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Galbert, thank you very much. I would say that Commissioner Jewell, you are right in bringing stuff at the 11th hour. I mean, we want to be able to have a good idea to look at it, whatever. And I didn't know anything about this until now, but I do trust my the other board members here when they do bring something at the last minute that is really worthy and worthy of our look at, even if it's the last minute. And I would say the biggest concern I have with this, because I'm going to support it, but the biggest concern I have is we have a contracted employee that we're forcing to comply with state law. So which makes me think, what are we going to do about this employee that we've contracted with that's not following state law? And so I think that's the bigger discussion after today. The employee that we contract with through the Land and Mineral, Administrator Gray, is it Land and Minerals?
Yes.
That's not complying with state law. We need to, I think, however this vote goes, I would suggest when it's done to see why. And when we have a contracted employee not following state law, that we have a big issue. So I'm going to support this. I believe that, and no matter what one of my fellow board members would have brought this forward at the last minute with reasonable and using the rationale, I would have supported it. And I'm going to do that thus far. But the biggest picture is that contracted employee not following state law. So I think we should have that discussion maybe at a later board meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Commissioner Stauber, you raised issues of contractual law and state law, and I saw that the county attorney's interest got piqued here, so I think she wants to weigh in on this, and then I'll recognize after Commissioner Rocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, in this case, the county contractor, it's not an employee, and we have to be careful not to use that term for employment law reasons, but the county contractor in this case hasn't violated the law yet, and we're not sure that he would ever violate the law in the performance of his duties. In this case, we're kind of taking a proactive measure by issuing this directive motion or discussing it in any event to let him know that we want him to look at the requirements of Minnesota law closely and to make sure he complies with them, but to also do it in a fashion that facilitates these types of mowing and hay contracts and arrangements to occur. And we've heard some information in the past that he is not looking at it with an eye toward facilitation, but rather being a roadblock. And in this case, this motion clearly indicates to the contractor what the board's position would be in this case.
All right, thank you, County Attorney Mackey. Did you want to have a follow-on question? Because I know Commissioner Rocker. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much, and my fellow commissioners, thank you for allowing me to have this subsequent. You just mentioned a roadblock. We have a contractual employee that's putting a roadblock up for private business and to support the county? Is that what I just heard?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Stauber, not yet. In fact, this is still evolving as we speak. There have been statements made that the contractor would not grant any permits whatsoever, and he's come back off that position since then. At least that's the information that I have. But he hasn't yet received a formal permit application, and therefore he hasn't been able to act on it. That said, he indicated that his only option in this case was to require a fully enclosed semi-truck or van, and that's not what Minnesota law requires. Therefore, the insertion of the non-arbitrary and non-capricious language in the motion was meant to cover that situation. We don't want him denying permit requests outright, and we don't want him doing any sort of denial in an arbitrary or capricious fashion. In that event, then, we believe he would be violating Minnesota law and also the terms of his contract with St. Louis County.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Mackey. Thank you, Commissioner Stauber, Commissioner Rocker.
Thank you, Chair Dahlberg. Just very briefly, I guess I'm going to support this as well. 99.999% of the time, there's all the due process and due diligence that's required and wanted by all of us to ensure full transparency on all the issues we have in front of us. But I think the key statement by Attorney Mackey was we're taking a proactive step. And I'm of the belief that if the county attorney's office thought this was a bad idea and or our administration thought this was a bad idea, it wouldn't even be in front of us, I'd like to think. So that being said, I'm very comfortable with taking an action like this and let the chips fall where they may, but I have a lot of confidence and faith in the recommendations of our attorney's office and our administration that we should feel a certain level of comfort moving this forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Rocker. Commissioner Jewell.
So let me be clear, I support the basic idea. I grew up on a farm, I got it. These people need to bale the hay. So that's not a problem. I understand the attorney looked at it. I understand administration looked at it. I also understand that Commissioner Nelson handed it out at the very end of the meeting, having had it. He could have handed it out earlier. We could have all known. There could have been an email to all of us saying it. There are a variety of ways it could have happened. And I agree, Commissioner Forsman, I think there are reasons to do it. I don't disagree with that. My point is, for me, as one of the commissioners, I think it's only right that we all should be in on what you were in on earlier today, instead of ending up in this position where it gets dropped on us at the last moment. And that's my point, is it could have been. It didn't have to wait till now. It did, but it didn't have to. We could have all seen it. We could have all been part of the discussion. It just got dropped in at the last moment. And I think we should invite everybody to bring those things. I've yet to bring a directive motion at the end of a meeting with no time left and the public not knowing about it, because I don't think it's right. Now, it doesn't mean the rest of you can't do it. I'm just saying that I feel like it should be something that we discuss in a more open fashion.
Thank you, Commissioner Jewell. Commissioner Miller.
It sounded to me like the county attorney said that there was no permit application received in this instance. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Miller, The information that I've received is that there wasn't a formal request made, that there may have been a discussion through MnDOT, contacting people from the county about the proper procedure, and at that point, a statement was made by the contractor that he would not grant any sort of permit. And that's where all of this came from then.
So it's not clear that any law has been violated? Okay, so I just don't feel like, with the short amount of time to discuss this, that, you know, we have enough information to know that even these whereases and therefores are accurate. I don't know. It seems kind of, and the definition of emergency, you know, I mean, not being able to hay is urgent, but when I think of an emergency, I don't know that I would classify this as an emergency. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. I'm going to weigh in. You know, it seems like we're getting pretty up in arms to almost support this directive motion, but I think I do want to make a point as the chair here, and that is on the, you know, it's raised some troubling with me, and you know, a couple things so the public who's listening in understands this. We as commissioners have a little difficulty because of the open meeting law, is that if we have something we're bringing forward and already one commissioner talked to another commissioner, you can only bring so much. Having that said, I would recommend to the administration in the future, because you know about it, you can be our conduit, is that when a commissioner says, you know, administration, here's my emergency, I have to have this haying done here, we can't wait till the next meeting. I think the first thing to do is, got it, you know, because you took some time to draft, it should be either we're in the process drafting, or here's the formal one, get it to us by email, or at the beginning of the meeting say, we have a commissioner, Commissioner X or Commissioner Y, that wants to bring a directive motion, and the intent of that person is to bring it at the end of this meeting. And here's your heads up on this. And I apologize that I couldn't get it this earlier, because that other commissioner can't be telling us and giving head warning, because they'd be violating an open meeting law. So I think, so we don't have hurt feelings in the future, let's have, if we have to do these directive motions and there's no other way around it, let's get it to the administration. The administration gives us the heads up at the beginning of a board meeting at the latest, and then says they're working in it and they got it hot off the press. But it is a bad precedent that we start generating these. I just want to say that I'm somewhat concerned, you know, likely I'll support this. And so I had Commissioner Forsman next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to that point, and I was going to speak to the open meeting law, is that Commissioner Nelson actually called me to ask and tell me about how the bonding meetings that he's been going to, and then this came up as, you know, in a conversation. I don't think I'm telling anybody in this room something they don't know. If I tell them that if Keith starts talking to you, you're going to listen for a while. That's just the way that it is. And I'm not picking on him because he is my friend, but so we'll know most of the things that he's thinking about there. So, and this came up as part of it, and he kind of explained to me as a farmer why this is an emergency, because they hay for this upcoming winter. It's a big deal to get as much hay, local hay, into the area for the animals that are in this area. And so, yeah, I did get a lot more than what I was, but I agree with everybody here that says that this should have been on our email, or it should have been sitting in front of us, and I'm not picking on anybody or anything like that, but it should have been, and I think that the message is very clear that it will be in the future. But I do think it's that important that even though Commissioner Nelson walked out, which I do not take in, just simply put, I don't think that was a good move. But at the same time, I think it's that important that I was willing to make it as a motion again, because I think it is that important. So I won't say any more, except that I think that this is a good directive motion. I think the fact that it's went through administration, through the county attorney's office, and the other thing, and to Commissioner Miller, is that the whereas I was taught 30-some years ago when I first got elected there as a local official, that the whereases don't mean anything. It's only what it says, that therefore be it resolved. Whereases are just words that they put in to kind of give people an idea of what the thing is. They have no effect on the actual resolution. The resolution has to say, therefore be it resolved, or, or to be resolved further, but they need that word resolved. The whereases, they're kind of throwaways, but in the same token, I think that they give us an idea of what's trying to transpire. But to be honest, I can't find any fault with anything anybody's said. Is that I also do not like to have a motion come in front of me that I haven't seen before at the end of a meeting. I think that the message is going to be extremely clear to somebody after this meeting.
I saw it, Mr. Gray.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and a very good conversation, both about process and protocol, almost as significant and parallel as to the motion that's proposed by Commissioner Nelson. And that isn't stated in here that this was brought by Commissioner Nelson initially. But I would say that during the MICA presentation and right up until that point, administration and attorney's office were trying to see if the process had evolved, that one would not necessitate any motion at all. And two, there was significant legwork to see what the issue was or wasn't, maybe equally accurate. And I didn't feel in a position to inform other commissioners about an individual commissioner request that I didn't even know was going to ever see the light of day, so to speak. The issue hasn't been resolved. The concern was still there. The commissioner, as is each individual commissioner's prerogative, wanted to have this brought forward. And I'm not in a position to be the editor or the veto power on what individual commissioners can do. I think that's why you're in a position to support and understand the constituent concerns that are brought to you. So this is very extraordinary. Commissioner Miller is very new to the process. We don't have a lot of directive motions, quite frankly. The chair has discouraged that, and I think we've by and large adhered to that. And it's an individual judgment in this case to bring it forward. And again, to the extent that there could have been more notification, perhaps a heads up could have been sent out saying that there might be something that might come forward that might have this tone to it. And quite frankly, the tenor of the resolve to Commissioner Forsman's point, that's the most significant piece of the puzzle, is just to reinforce this county's commitment to not making subjective determinations when we have law and guidelines that are very clear, black and white, if you will. And I guess there's always room for interpretation by individuals, but we want to minimize that subjectivity, and this board has been trying to be clear about this. And this is to reinforce that the decision-making will be in a non-arbitrary, non-capricious manner based on the facts and anecdotal information that both the attorney's office and myself have received to date. So I'm very conscious and very focused, and I think outside parties as well as internal individuals would recognize that we've come a long ways towards publicizing our agendas in advance, working with outside groups to ensure that their comfort level is a lot higher today than it was maybe even 5 years ago when I came on board personally. And we are committed to that path, but not everything is so clear as to timing. And I would say that in an effort, again, to reinforce, give a little background on this, the directive motion was much more brief, and hopefully we weren't going to have to even talk to it. But I respect Commissioner Nelson's position on this, his wanting to have a good process. It's not arbitrary or capricious in any manner. And I'm very thankful to the attorney's input that was going up till 11 o'clock this morning. So maybe a little bit of defensiveness here, but we are committed, both the attorney's office and administration, to timely and informing communication. And this is one of those things that ran up to the 11th hour, so to speak. Maybe quite literally, I guess, today at 11. So thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, I did see one other hand.
Thank you, Commissioner Dahlberg. Just very briefly, I guess, safe to assume this language was put together by the attorney.
That's right.
Okay, because my first reaction was to the comments is I'm wondering if it wouldn't be softened a bit if we, instead of directing the county ag inspector, the board, hereby board here directs the county administration and attorney to encourage or to work with the county ag inspector to assure compliance with Minnesota law. I don't, just as a suggestion.
Administrator Gray.
Is it too heavy that
Mr.
you're
Chair.
directing?
I think that the intent here is to ensure that we address this timely and that we follow the letter of the law. And that's board's reinforcement. Quite frankly, I believe this language is indeed in the contract itself. But sometimes the weight of the board really is reinforcing in terms of a communication mechanism. And I think the attorney would reinforce that we are very committed to not violating the law. And so that's equally inherent in this issue. So I think massaging it at this point in time would accomplish maybe not a whole lot other than, I mean, it's here before you. If I think I would suggest that we vote it up or down. We're committed to pushing hard to be responsive and compliant in our duties at the county level.
Let me just add my rationale, if I could, Mr.
Commissioner.
Chair. You know, my thinking is that, really as a county board, we direct administration and our other elected officers that we can to carry out the functions of administering and seeing that we're in compliance. And it seems to me that identifying that in the resolution, I mean, the way it's written now where it says we're directing the county ag inspector, I don't know, as a commissioner, I don't have a relationship with the county ag inspector per se. We're almost, he's having his day in court here, but not being able to represent himself. And for us to share with us what maybe his rationale is for his actions. And as a commissioner, I would personally feel more comfortable with directing our county attorney and administration to ensure that the county ag inspector is complying with the contract we have with them and that therein lies compliance with Minnesota law.
Thank you, Commissioner Rocker. I think we're having a minute council on the language there, Commissioner, so we will pause in place. Commissioner, Administrator Gray.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, if it's okay with the makers of the motion, after a very quick consult, that after the word directs, that be inserted county administration to ensure that, and then to eliminate the word to comply. And I will read the edited version, and if it's consistent with Commissioner Rocker's intent, we will assume that that's the modified motion. That the St. Louis County Board hereby directs county administration to ensure that the county agriculture inspector complies with state law. And then the balance.
I'm fine with that for the maker. I like it.
And again, I personally see this as reinforcing language that we're trying to not summarily interpret state law, but rather adhere to it. And if there are issues around the law, I would prefer to address those through our legislative process. And I think we have a chance to revisit maybe organizationally how we address this, if this is the best model. It might be, by the way. And I do want to reinforce Attorney Mackey's comments that this has not been a violation that's happened, and that we're concerned, because that would be unfair to the county agricultural inspector at this point. But a lot of dialogue going around. We're still trying to get our arms around it. We want to make sure that this is timely and consistent with state law.
Okay, does everybody understand the language of the directive motion as put forward by Commissioner Forsman and Rocker? I'm seeing all heads north and south. Okay, good. Seeing no more hands, all in favor with the sign aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, similar sign. So the directive motion. Oh, thank you. So the directive motion passes on a vote of, let's see, it was 5-1 with one commissioner absent. And we were actually in the commissioner discussion items and reports section. So is there any other commissioners, before there's a motion adjourned, who would like to contribute to an item that they have a report on?
Quickly said is that I was going to report on that meeting down at the Amherst Wilding, the transportation sustainability. It became part of the conversation there, so I'm just, thank you, it's already been done.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsman. Any other commissioners that have reports for the board? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It was quick. Motion by Commissioner Jewell, seconded by Commissioner Forsman. All in favor with the sign aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.